people who have had far less trauma or bad or hard things happen to them tend to wear it, and it kind of holds on to them and dictates their whole lives. And I think what's so inspiring about you is that you endured unbelievable pain and you found purpose and meaning in it, and you've become this strong, resilient. Welcome back to Spiritually Hungry. Today's conversation is one I believe will touch every single person who listens, not because of the trauma involved, but because of the profound strength, clarity, and spiritual wisdom that grew out of it. Elizabeth Smart came into the public eye at just 14 years old when she was abducted from her home, held captive, and miraculously rescued 9 months later. But what always struck me about Elizabeth is not the horror of what she endured, it's the woman she chose to become afterward. She has transformed her pain into purpose, becoming an advocate, activist, and a voice of unshakable resilience. Her new book, Detours, Hope and Growth After Life's Hardest Turns, invites us to a different kind of conversation, one that goes beyond survival and into the winding, unexpected path life takes us on. In it, she explores how to navigate the moments that pull us off our course, how to rebuild meaning where life feels unrecognizable, and how to find strength and spiritual grounding even in the darkest chapters. Elizabeth, welcome to Spiritually Hungry. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
So for those who don't know, I have 4 children, and I was sharing with them, like, Elizabeth Smart's coming on the show. They're like, who's Elizabeth Smart? Because they weren't born yet. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay. So I grew up in a very happy family, very close-knit. I think what everyone would probably consider a safe neighborhood. I never dreamed anything could happen to me. I just thought my life was just pretty laid out. And when people would warn about stranger danger or using the buddy system or anything else, I mean, I was aware of it, but I didn't really think that applied to me because I wasn't a rebellious kid. I was a pretty obedient kid. And it was right before I was going to graduate from junior high. I was so excited for the summer, excited for high school. And I remember I was in bed just like any other night. And the next thing I remember was hearing a voice saying, I have a knife at your neck. Don't make a sound. Get up and come with me. And at first I didn't really respond because I didn't expect it. I mean, how could this actually be happening to me? The voice repeated the same word. I remember opening my eyes. There was this dark figure standing above me. I could feel a knife lying across my neck. I remember feeling like in that moment I didn't have a choice and that it was my responsibility to protect my little sister who was asleep in the same bed as me. And so I looked up and I did exactly as this man told me to do. And I remember he ended up taking me up into the mountain behind my home. And that was the beginning of my captivity that lasted 9 months. I was abused. I was raped. I was starved. I was deprived of water. I mean, honestly, I was deprived of dignity and humanity. And I will never forget the day I was rescued. Truthfully, it was a little bit traumatic. During my captivity, my captors had taken me to Southern California for the winter, and I convinced them to return back to Utah, which I think in and of itself was a miracle because they had every reason to not return to Utah. And it was the first day we were back. We were walking up State Street in Salt Lake, which is a pretty big, heavily trafficked street. And all of a sudden, police cars started pulling up, and these police officers jumped out. They started questioning my captors. They started questioning me. And truthfully, at first, I was scared to say who I was. I mean, I knew what my captors were capable of, but I didn't know what the police were capable of. I didn't know if they could actually protect me. So initially, I stuck with the story that I'd been told to say if we were ever questioned. And then finally, one of the police officers looked at me and separated me away from my captors and said, there's been a girl who's been missing for a long time, and her family is searching for her. They've never given up on her. They want her to come home more than anything else in this world. Aren't you ready to go home? And that was really when I was able to admit who I was. I was then handcuffed and put in the back of the car, which made me think, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. I should not have admitted who I was. I mean, they must not think I'm innocent because they're handcuffed. I'm going to jail. Like,
Why did they handcuff you?
I'm not 100% sure. If I had to guess, I think they didn't know what I was capable of. I think it was probably procedure for anyone who sat in the back of a police car to be handcuffed. I'm not really sure.
And what was the story that you were told to say if you were ever found by the police? What did you say at first?
I was told to say that we were traveling ministers for Christ, that I was born in Florida. My parents were divorced, and I was spending time with my dad. And yeah, we were just traveling around the country, inviting people to come to God.
And your sister helped with your capture, I
With the
believe.
finding,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes,
She did. So my sister, she's a hero. You know, when I was first abducted, she was intensively interviewed. They even tried to hypnotize her to see if any other details would come forward, but her story always remained the same. And it wasn't until probably 5 months into my captivity that one day she was just randomly looking at the Guinness Book of World Records. And my dad walked into the room and she said, Dad, I think I know who kidnapped Elizabeth. And she told my dad it was that guy that came to our house one time and just did some work and then disappeared. I think it was Emmanuel, because that was the name he was going by at the time. And my dad took information to the police. They did a composite drawing. They brought my brothers in to try to do a composite drawing, but the police really didn't believe that it was Emmanuel, that it was Brian David Mitchell. They really still thought it was Richard Reese. And actually, my parents went against police advice and ended up releasing that picture, which really ultimately led to my rescue.
Wow.
Right. I remember you told the story that your dad gave the composite, right? And it was then shown on the Larry King Live show, right? And
Yes.
that was very key to being discovered.
Yes, my dad had become close with John Walsh, who had featured my story on America's Most Wanted multiple times. And it was actually John Walsh who took the picture to Larry King Live. My dad had called John up and said, Mary Catherine's come forward. We have this picture. The police don't want us to come forward. And it was actually John, when he went on Larry King Live, that released the picture.
Now, I think that, there's so many people who never go through something like you've gone through in a lifetime. And people who have had far less trauma or bad or hard things happen to them tend to wear it, and it kind of holds on to them and dictates their whole lives. And I think what's so inspiring about you is that you endured unbelievable pain and you found purpose and meaning in it, and you've become this strong, resilient woman. And so I'd love to hear how you were able to do that. And the other part of that question is, at 14 years old, especially, you've shared that you grew up in a home that had faith, believed in God, but that your faith wasn't shaken when you were those 9 months, that when you were held captive. How did you hold on to, and we use the term certainty in terms of like a consciousness to hold on to that connection with God. How are you able to not kind of turn the other way and blame God or lose your faith or belief in that time?
So parents had always taught that we were children of God and that he loved us and he wanted the best for us. And that was the God I knew. It was the God that I believed in. And so I was abducted and my captors were abusing me, but they were saying that they were doing everything in the name of God. God commanded them to chain me up. God commanded them to rape me. God commanded them to do all this stuff to me. That was not what I knew. That was not what I believed in. And I also found it such a comfort to believe that I wasn't truly alone, that there was someone who was all powerful, that was aware of me and that wouldn't abandon me. That was so much more comforting thought than believing in the God that my captors portrayed.
Did you ever speak out to them or kind of say this is not God that you're speaking at, or did you just to survive? Were you just quiet? Kind of how did you handle that?
I mean, I did try, but ultimately I realized that just didn't make a difference. It didn't make a difference no matter what I said. And so for survival's sake, I did finally stop trying to reason with them and did whatever I had to survive.
I have a ton of questions.
Yes.
Do you want to ask one?
Well, I actually, in your healing process, one of the stories that really struck me strongly was your grandfather's influence and maybe the process, what his both tough love and stoicism, but his belief in you. If you can share with us and our listeners how your grandfather played an important role.
So growing up, I really looked up to my grandpa. I mean, he was a doctor, he was a cancer specialist, but he was also a cowboy. And some of my favorite memories were going horseback riding with him in the summer. And I always wanted to prove to him that I was tough, that I could do anything a boy could do. And I just always looked up to him. And so after I was rescued, he would invite me to go riding with him. And that was healing because horses don't care what you experienced yesterday or last month or last year. They are very in the present and they force you to stay in the present. So when I'd go riding, I couldn't just ruminate on what happened to me. I had to be in the present. And it was a lot of times we didn't do a whole lot of chatting when we were riding. We just enjoyed being out in nature, enjoyed the connection with the horses, enjoyed each other's company. And I always felt very safe with my grandpa, which I couldn't say about every other man at that time. I definitely had a fear of being alone with strange men that I didn't know. And so that was very helpful to me in rebuilding faith and trust in men. But then also he let me try things. He pushed me to move out of my comfort zone. And he had such a faith in me that I could do it, that I believed I could do it. And I think that made a huge difference to my healing as well, because I think when you're always treated with kid gloves or people are so worried about you that they don't let you live, I'm not sure how much you can progress.
Right. It's like the thing no one's talking about, but you feel it in people's presence. It sounds like your grandfather just stood with you and just allowed you to feel like today was just a normal day. And I think you need a lot of normal days to feel that again. Reintegration can be really hard, especially at that age and coming back into a world that you probably felt like you didn't really belong in anymore because so much in your world had changed. How did you kind of take that first step or many steps really?
So much of my world did change. And probably the hardest thing for me was having everyone recognize me all of a sudden. And I mean, like, I'd go to the grocery store with my mom, people would approach my mom, and I legitimately would be standing right there next to my mom. It'd be like, how is Elizabeth doing? Is she okay? Is she all right? And my mom would be like, well, she's right here. And it was almost like they were scared to talk to me, but also they wanted to say something to my mom. But as time went on, I mean, every now and then I'd see my face on a magazine or in a newspaper, and like that was not normal to me. That was such a shock. I mean, just having all of this attention, and I was definitely a wallflower growing up, and I was fine being a wallflower. I was fine blending in. That was just fine. I mean, you know, at 13, 14, I'm not sure that there is a graceful way to go through puberty. I definitely don't want to go through it again. And I was very self-conscious at the time. And just then having all this attention on me when I was rescued was hard. And trying to find that new normal and having people approach me and share their experiences with me while trying to embrace my new life and try to reclaim everything that I felt had been taken to me, it was hard.
So there's two aspects to that, right? It's how you engage with the outside world and what that interaction looks like, and those conversations seem to be a bit messy. But then there's also the internal dialogue that you have with yourself, right? And from what I've read, also just feelings of shame and how to really kind of connect with yourself again. So what did that journey look like? I'm sure it's ever evolving, really.
I mean, I was embarrassed of what had happened to me. I didn't want anyone to know what had happened to me. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to hide it, which now as an adult looking back, I think was naive, but I was still a pretty naive kid. I mean, yes, my eyes open to many aspects of the world, but I also thought that I could hide what happened, which I think when you hear stories of abduction, you just automatically jump to the conclusion that they've been raped, that they've been sexually abused as well. But I thought I could hide that. And I knew that it wasn't my fault. I know that I hadn't put myself in any situation that, I don't want to say invite that to happen, because nobody invites rape into their life or sexual violence into their life. But nobody could blame me for being in any kind of compromising situation. And I still felt embarrassment and shame over what had happened. And that took a while to align my brain with my heart.
Yeah, I can relate in a whole different way, but my second child was born with Down syndrome, and I found out a few hours after he was born. And the immediate emotion, aside from shock and fear, was deep, overwhelming shame, because I felt like my body betrayed me. And I think that what happens is when you find yourself in a situation you never thought would happen, that you never wanted, that you never invited, and your body somehow is involved in it, it doesn't feel like yours anymore. It feels like it betrayed you, even though it doesn't make any sense. Like, no, my body didn't betray me. It just happened. My child was born this way, but that first feeling was that, and it takes a while to work through. I mean, I think though the silver lining is everybody kind of funnels through guilt, shame, blame in their life, and if you can get to the other side of it, that's where real growth happens and transformation.
I mean, in my new book, I kind of talk about the steps that you go through when navigating these really hard experiences in life. And part of that is mourning the loss you experienced, the loss of life you imagined for yourself. And that's really difficult. I mean, saying goodbye to the life that you thought you'd have, or whatever it was you imagined for yourself. I feel like that is a really hard step to take. And I think it's really easy to get kind of caught up in that moment. I want to say, I think it's healthy to mourn loss of what you imagined for yourself, but you do need to take the next step after that. And you do need to fill your life with supportive people, understanding, compassion, kindness, who can remind you that you are an incredible human being and you are worthy of happiness and you're worthy of joy and love and every good thing in life.
So let's go through that. So are you talking about the 4 rest stops that you write about in your book? Okay. So
Yes.
The first one, grieving lost paths. And so what does that look like in your life now, both with big traumas and little disappointments? Is there something in your life that when you were younger, you thought it would look a certain way, and now that's not even something you'd want today? Like, what does that difference look like from the life you had before and the life after? Because I always believe that there's before and after, right? For everybody. Usually the bigger traumas kind of are really clear. You have clear snapshots, like I will never be the same after that day, June 5th, right? And then there's the after. But what did you kind of think it would be, what your life would be, and that you've kind of...
I talk about actually in my book. During my abduction, my family was my rock. I mean, believing that they'd always love me, believing that they'd always be there for me. I could not imagine anything ever happening to my parents. I mean, they were my foundation. They were, what I knew would always be there for me. And then about 7 years ago, I got a phone call at about 6 in the morning. It was like a month after I had my last baby. So I was sleep deprived, maybe a little bit delirious. That's a better word. And my dad on the phone, and he was telling me that he was divorcing my mom. My parents were getting a divorce and that he was gay. And at first I thought I misheard. I was in such shock because I never had a clue. And I couldn't imagine my parents not being together. And that was hard. I mean, I didn't experience traditional therapy immediately after I was rescued, but I could end up going to therapy for my parents' divorce because that was just something that I couldn't imagine ever happening. I mean, that was one of the unshakable pillars in my life. And it's not complete family events anymore. It's dividing them, managing relations and feelings in a way that I never imagined I'd have to. And so it's different. And I mean, with each holiday or birthday or big moment in my life or my children's lives, there is a piece of sadness that it feels a little bit incomplete.
It's interesting. Two things that came to mind when I read that section in your book. First of all, I was surprised, right? Because of course, I knew your story of your main trauma. And then when you speak about this trauma, what I felt is that it gave permission to a lot of people who are reading the book, who of course didn't, as most have not had the first terrible trauma you had, but do have these type of traumas. Almost everybody has in their lives. It gave them permission to say, no, I can actually learn from this, from my trauma. But the second question that I had is, did you ever ask your dad, why did he call you at 6 a.m.? Because your first thought was somebody must have died, which is unfortunately what most people think when they get in the middle of the night or early morning call. So why did he do it at 6 a.m.?
You're absolutely right. I thought maybe my mom was in the hospital. I thought maybe there was an accident. I absolutely thought something terrible had happened. But I think my dad had just thought about it so much that he just felt he had to do it. And I'm sure neither of my parents were probably sleeping at the time. And I'm sure they were both struggling at the time. And I think he just felt like he had so much to get off his chest. He just couldn't wait any longer.
Wow.
And then there's also grief that, I think grief is healthy. I think it helps us heal. How do you know if there's still that place of, okay, this is grief and I need to deal with it, versus the grief that sometimes people, they just hold on to that for long periods of time?
I mean, I think it's okay to always have emotion around events. I think it's okay to look back and be like, yeah, that still does hurt a little bit, like that there's still loss there. But I also feel like, and this is kind of moving into one of the next rest stops, it's important to find the positives along the way. What did you learn? Did it increase your compassion? And to continue on with that same example, I was always really close with my mom, and I used to call her multiple times a day. And, she was there with my dad. So I did not necessarily feel the same, what's the word? I just didn't feel like I necessarily had to reach out to him separately as much because he was there with my mom. If I came to visit, like if I came to go out with my mom, my dad would be there and I could say hi and give him a hug and chat for a minute and then carry on with my mom. But then when my parents divorced, it forced me to build a relationship with my dad. I mean, that we were close before, but it was also just like an easy kind of passive close. But this made me become really intentional about my relationship with my dad. And I would say that, yeah, we are closer than we ever were before. And for me, that's a really big positive, even though it is sad. It came out of a sad situation, but I think it's wonderful that I'm closer with my dad now than I was before. And that is a positive. So I feel like finding the good things along the way, the growth, the education, the empathy that you learn along the way, those are good things.
100%. So that's your rest stop 2 is embracing change. Rest stop 3, seeking connections. So in the book, you emphasize connections. What kind of relationships or communities healed you the most after? You said it was hard to be around men you didn't know, but also how do you navigate that? Trust is, people have a hard time trusting just generally without any good reason, but to trust again that you'll be okay in the big world and how to reach out to people. How did you navigate that?
Well, approaching this question a little bit from a different side, but it's the best way I can explain it. When I've gone out and spoken around the country today, I am almost always approached by other survivors. And much of the time, they start off their conversation with things like, I experienced something similar, but I've never told anyone. Or when I tried to tell people, I wasn't believed. And I look back on my own experience, and when I try to pinpoint what made the difference for me, I was never questioned whether I was kidnapped or not. I was always believed, and I always had people around me who were sensitive to my situation and wanted to see me happy and wanted to see me move forward and wanted to be there for me in any way possible. I look back at like my youth group, and I had friends, and I remember going out to McDonald's and just ordering multiple large fries with my friends and like a youth leader and just sitting around the table eating fries and a McFlurry. And that was just such a nice experience to be included, to have happy memories and have that support in my life, have that connection in my life. And so I think finding those people who are there for you, and it doesn't always have to be like these big, heavy conversations or really intense situations. It can be the light situations. It's just finding that support, finding that connection to help lift you up. Because I think more than anything, we need connection in life. I mean, as human beings, we're social creatures, we're social beings, and isolating yourself makes it easy to just ruminate on the past and think about all the bad things that happened. And I think the longer you do that, the harder it is to kind of climb out of that hole.
100%.
Right. And in connection to that, I think you write about Martin Seligman, who Monica and I have often quoted on the podcast, right? And he had really two main, research that you focus on. One is the learned, right, inability to change, right? The dog experiment. But then you said that, but really not enough people focus on the fact that he then drifted towards positive psychology, right? I think the quote was, right, he was drawn to positive psychology like Moses to the burning bush. And so maybe you can share with us a little bit about how you see, or more importantly, our listeners, those who have gone through trauma, can use maybe that process of leaning more towards positive psychology and the positive impact it can have on healing.
I mean, I really believe that all of us are stronger than we imagine ourselves to be. And you really don't know it. You don't know what your limits are until you're forced into that situation. And just to carry on with that, I think all of us have a story. All of us have experienced heartbreak, and we've all experienced our own worst trauma. But we have survived it. We've survived every day. We've been alive. And I really do believe that we have the opportunity to be so resilient. And we have the opportunity every day to pursue happiness and peace in our life. And I think sometimes it can be really difficult. I think a lot of times we do have to walk through the darkness before we find that light at the end of the tunnel. But I do believe it is possible for all of us, no matter what you've experienced.
It's a little bit off topic, but I actually had a conversation last night, and I'd like to see how you would address this. I was speaking to a friend whose wife has been diagnosed with cancer, and she had a surgery, and now the doctors are proposing chemotherapy. And her belief is that if she went through this, her life will never be the same. And she's sort of stuck in that dark place, which is, of course, understandable. Have you spoken to people in that type of life where it's more of a physical, but also emotional state of being stuck in darkness, not believing, like you just said, that they'll actually make it out? and have the life that they wanted to have, because life is going to be different now on this medication that she probably has to take for the rest of her life. How would you inspire, speak to a person going through that type of difficulty?
I mean, there are so many impossible situations in life that you can't imagine yourself experience or being in until you're there. And then when you're there, you do not want to hear the platitudes that people say out of good intentions or meaningful. But one of the things that I have seen when people experience these terrible diseases, these physical setbacks, is that a lot of them don't put off the things that they wanted to do, the connections they wanted to make. When I think you're healthy and just kind of going through your life, it's easy to think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that next year. I'll do that. I'll just do that at some future date. When it feels like your mortality is really called into question, I think many people do end up turning to relationships, pursuing those experiences that they always want to do, whether that's traveling or experiencing anything. I feel like it makes them really want to make the most of whatever time they have left. And we don't know how much time we have left. I mean, none of us know. But I just feel like life is still worth living and there's still hope. We don't know what medical advances will come tomorrow. We don't know what the future holds. So I feel like we always need to hold on to hope, and we need to make the most of every day that we have. And that's easy for me to sit here and say. It's certainly a different thing to put it into action. But I think
no, but I actually think, coming from you, who clearly had a very, very traumatic experience, I think actually it is much more powerful than from
Yeah,
others.
and I feel like it wasn't just that it happened once. It was 9 months that you were abused, really. I think your outlook on how you view it, and your post-traumatic growth outlook really is so enlightening and so helpful and healing for, I think, all of our listeners. So I do actually think that you're in a different position where people really listen to that, because you could have chosen a very different life after what happened. You really could have. And I think some of it is just your unique spirit and soul, which is beautiful. I think some of it is the environment you grew up in and the upbringing. And we speak about this often. Children grow up with this idea of God and feeling a connection. And then if it's not in the home, then they usually get away from that. They step away from that. They lose that connection. And then some find it again on their own. Some do not. We speak about God all the time in our house. It creates a different kind of ability to see through the darkness, to understand that there is a silver lining, that there is something that you can do with it, and you can grow and you can be of service. And I think you're a walking, beautiful example of that. So I think the question was really great for you.
Yeah. I'm not sure we're talking about relationships. So I was probably the one place where I actually literally laughed out loud in your book, which sounds kind of weird, I know. But if you can share with us and our listeners, the first, when you were proposed to, and that situation, also a little bit leading up to it, when you said no, I thought it was just.
Well, you gave it a.
No. I think it's still gonna.
I mean,
Well, tell us a little bit about your love story and how you.
Actually, my younger brother was really interested in this girl, and she was so cute, and she's, oh, Elizabeth, like, you should go on a date with my big brother. I think you guys would have so much fun. And after she left, my brother was like, you should go on the date. Like, I really like this girl. You should go.
It's good for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for me. And so I was like, oh, okay, sure. Like, I'll go on the date. We had a good time. I mean, he was a nice guy. And we went out a couple more times. And I just had like this spiritual experience where I felt like I needed to go out and serve, and I needed to share what had been so meaningful to me. Like my faith in God, it had made such a difference in my life, and I wanted to share that with other people. So I decided to become a missionary for a year and a half. And I went to the missionary training center where I had a crash course in French because I was going to France. And while I was in this training center, before I'd gone there, actually, to rewind a little bit. I had told this guy that I was going to be a missionary and that, that was my focus, and he should pursue other options. And I had been in the training center for weeks and weeks, and I was in a pretty small group. Typically, the classrooms were a lot larger, and it was just, you're assigned a companion that you do everything with. And it was so me and my companion, and then there was a companionship of boys. And there was this one boy who was from Scotland, and both my companion and I thought he was so cute, and he had a Scottish accent. We both fell in love with that. And so I was sitting in this classroom. It was over the holidays, so teachers were often gone. And it felt like the first time that this young Scottish man was talking to me. And I was so excited that he was paying attention to me, when all of a sudden there's this person kneeling down in front of me crying. And I mean,
the first guy came. Okay. Yeah.
It's this guy that I'd gone on a few dates with, that I just said it wasn't going to work out. And that's when he asked me to marry him.
That's very ambitious.
This cute Scottish man started kind of chuckling, and he got up and he left the room, which I was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving me? And I just couldn't think of anything else to say, but no, I didn't tell him I didn't love him, but I thought that was kind of self-explanatory when I told him I was going to be a missionary. And that I was going on a mission. And I actually had to repeat it twice. And then I just remember him crying and getting up and running out of the room.
And the Scottish boy.
Yes. So there's a president who's over the missionary training center, who oversees all of the administrative stuff, who oversees like the programming. I mean, it's quite an intensive job. And so Matthew, the name of this Scottish man, was like, you need to go tell the president. And I was like, oh, it's fine. He's like, no, you don't know what he's going to do. What if he comes back? What if he just, I don't know, does something drastic, more drastic than proposing to you? And so I was like, okay. So I went and told the missionary training center president, and he was just like, okay, you're going to France. Like, you are leaving as soon as possible. As soon as your visa comes through, you're leaving. And the only other missionary going to France was Matthew. And so he was like, okay, Matthew's going to escort you out there. And that's what happened. And while we were on the plane, Matthew's like, oh, in 2 years, because he was going to be a missionary for 2 years. He's like, in 2 years, I mean, if you want to, we should go on a date.
Oh my
God. I was like, okay. So I did actually end up flying out to Scotland after 2 years, and as they say, the rest is history.
I love that story so much.
Great story. So now you've been married now for how many years?
Almost 14 years.
Wow.
So we love stories, because I'm not.
I love that love story. Yeah. That's adorable. I mean, not for the other.
Again, a little bit off topic. What would you say has kept your love and your marriage thriving?
I mean, he is always the voice of reason. He supports me unconditionally. He's always been there for me. He's helped me work through every situation we've come across. But I feel like we've also prioritized our time together. I mean, we've got 3 kids now, and that can fill up every second of every day. But we also try to make sure we are having time for ourselves. And we've taken the time to, my kids aren't happy about it, of course, but we've taken the time to go on vacations where it's just him and I, just get away. And I feel like when we come back, I'm just like, oh yeah, I still love you. I still like you.
That's so important. Yeah. To make that time.
Yes. The
fourth step, rest stop 4, redefining destinations. So, which I think we've kind of covered that. I did want to ask you another question. You brought up your children. A lot of parents parent with fear just generally. Don't do this, don't do that, call me when you get there. So much fear. And then you lived really every parent's worst nightmare. How do you let that not affect your parenting with your children?
Well, it's a struggle. I would be remiss in saying that it doesn't. I also think having kids has given me a lot more compassion for what my parents went through. I mean, when I first got home, I was like, well, I experienced the bad side. I mean, you guys were all together. The bad things weren't happening to you. But now as a parent myself, I can't imagine anything worse. I mean, I would volunteer to go through anything to make sure my kids didn't have to experience that kind of pain. So that's given me a lot of compassion for my own parents. But also, I mean, it's hard. I remember I was given this piece of advice that was the right time to start talking to your children is when they start questioning you. And I remember thinking at the time, that's really good advice. But then my oldest started questioning me when she was about 3 years old. I was not ready for that. But I did my best to answer her questions in an age-appropriate way. But that also opened the door to continue that conversation and allow me to talk about things that I wouldn't know how to bring up otherwise as she's gotten older. And I mean, the same with my other two, because they're there. And then if she learns something, she tells them. And then they're like, well, Mom, what about this?
How old are your children?
So my oldest is 10, 8, and my youngest just turned 7.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also ask, you mentioned in your book that your faith has evolved. So I wonder if you can get a little bit more into the details of that, what it looks like today versus maybe where it was at 14 and 15.
I mean, I am so grateful for the upbringing I had. I'm so grateful for the principles and values I was raised with, for the faith that it instilled in me, because that was such a comfort to me as I went through my experiences. But now as an adult, unfortunately, where I have seen people who have really abused religion and have taken advantage of innocent people, it's really made me feel like I can't believe something until I have figured it out for myself. So I don't take things at face value anymore. I really feel like for me to believe in something, it's something that I have to learn for myself and not just take someone else's word for it.
Mm-hmm. And does it change the way you speak to your kids about God, about your faith?
Absolutely. I want them to believe in that kind and loving God who is always there for them and will never abandon them. But I also want them to learn and decide what they believe for themselves and pursue an individual relationship with God rather than just relying on mine.
Beautiful.
You also talk about the day that you were rescued. You call it your miracle day. How do you celebrate that day every year? And if so, how do you do that?
I mean,
March 12th, right?
I feel like the best way to celebrate that day is just to live another day. To engage in my present, to live the life that's changed from what I imagined, but is no less beautiful. So it's almost like any other day.
One of the phrases that really struck me in the beginning of your book, you write that you want your words to be a friend to the reader, right? Especially those who, and I was wondering, maybe you can share with us, but I'm sure, like you said, many people come up to you when you're speaking, after you're speaking, a story of somebody who through either your book or your work was able to really take a traumatic event in their lives and either, view it differently or be able to go beyond it and grow, where your words became a friend to them. Yes.
I mean, I really feel like everybody has a story. I know I'm repeating myself, and everybody has experienced something hard in their life. And when we go through these hard experiences, I think it's really easy to feel like we're alone because sometimes there's a lot of shame attached to it. Sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves that we should be better, that this shouldn't be so hard for us, or we should be further in our healing journey, or we compare ourselves to someone else, which comparison is the death of progress. And so I want them to know that they're not alone, that we all have hardships, and maybe we're not ready to talk about them yet, but I want them to know that they're not alone, and that there is always hope to move forward, and that they can still have a wonderful life, and that their worst moments don't have to define who they are.
You talked about something earlier, and it stayed with me, about how people believed you, your story, and that was part of the healing. So those people that come to you, I mean, that's really, really, really sad that they've not only been traumatized, but it's almost like the wound, it's adding salt to the wound over and over again because their voices aren't being heard. How do you help navigate? I know my nature is like just to collect people and help them because I don't want to leave them in that kind of state of pain. But what advice do you give them?
I mean, again, it's to pursue those connections. Find the people that will show up for them in thick and thin. And again, it doesn't always have to be like these deep, intensive situations. It can be as simple as going for a walk or going out to ice cream or going out for McDonald's fries and McFlurries. It's not being afraid and not turning in on yourself.
I have one last question.
Sure.
Because I thought this was interesting. Also, you talk about boundaries, and that, I think this is your quote, if you don't know what your boundary is, then it can have a devastating effects. It can follow you and shadow you for years to come. And that's a hard thing, I know, for a lot of people, to create boundaries, but also remain with an open heart. So how did you navigate that? And what does that look like for you?
I mean, honestly, I'm still navigating it. I feel like I don't want to say no to anyone, but I've had to learn how to say no, because I also need to be there for my kids. And if I said yes to everything, then I wouldn't be there for my kids. And so it's also finding out what's most important to you, and then learning how to say no, or learning how to remove yourself from a situation that you don't feel comfortable in. And I mean, we're the only species, for example, that will get into an elevator no matter what. I mean, if there's someone in there that you don't feel comfortable with, I think a lot of us are afraid to offend them, or that they're going to think bad of us because we wouldn't get into an elevator with them. But a gazelle wouldn't get into an elevator with a lion. And so it's prioritizing our safety. It's prioritizing our mental well-being. You know, if there is a toxic person in your life, it's finding the courage to cut them out, maybe.
I love that example. I use it in one of my books, Fear is Not an Option, that exactly, like, to learn to trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, then it's not right. And you don't have to just go along to be polite, or, you know, we're so worried about what people think about us. It's such a great example.
Yeah, I wonder if I can also, one of the quote you quote in your book, a relatively famous quote, right, that grief is love with nowhere to go. And then you recommended, or you suggested, a change to that quote, right? That grief is hope with nowhere to go. Can you explain that a little bit, and why if you agree that the second is more important than the first?
I do think the second is more important than the first. I think they both make sense. I agree with both of them, but I think when we lose hope, it is really hard to move forward. And I mean, we always have hope that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And again, when we imagine our life's paths, I mean, I think everyone expects some bumps along the way, but we have this vision and a hope that goes along with this vision. And when it feels like it's shut down, sometimes it can be really hard to find a new way and a new hope forward.
I love that so much. I think you're so inspiring, and it's been an absolute honor speaking with you today and meeting you. And just keep doing what you're doing. Where can people buy your book? And it's coming out
December 12th.
At the 16th.
16th, sorry.
But that's why I asked.
Yeah, okay. So the book is called...
I get numbers. I'm the worst with numbers.
All right. So tell everybody where they can find your book and when it comes out.
So you can find my book on Amazon. I turn to Amazon for everything. So my natural instinct is just be like, go to Amazon. It's right there. You can also go to my website and order it from elizabethsmart.com. But I would, in my mind, I'm just like, Amazon, right there. Be delivered to your door. I so hope that it is a friend and it is helpful to people.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you.